My cheating fiancée claimed her affair was just a test, so I walked out and never looked back. So let me tell you about what went down yesterday. I met up with my fiancé at our wedding venue to go over the final details. We're about 4 months out from the big day. We drove separately since she was coming straight from work. Toward the end of the meeting, she mentioned that her friend needed a ride home because she was dropping off a rental car. I was like, sure, no problem, since it wasn't far from where we live, and I know her friend pretty well. Fast forward to when I get home, I tried reaching out to her for the next 3 hours. Nothing. No texts, no calls, nada. Around the hour-and-a-half mark, I started getting worried, so I texted her friend to make sure everything was okay. Her friend eventually got back to me and said, "Sorry, I couldn't make it to the venue. I didn't see your fiancé tonight." At this point, I'm already suspicious. My fiancé finally strolls in and casually says, "Sorry it took longer than I thought. I hung out with her friend for a while before heading home." I played it cool and just said, "No big deal, but could you let me know next time?" But yeah, her friend's message totally didn't line up with her story. And that's when I realized something wasn't right. So at this point, I'm super sketched out. I asked her why her friend would say something like that, and she was just like, "I don't know, I can't control what my friend says." Then she walked outside. That didn't sit right with me. Now, I've never done this before, but I decided to check her phone records. Yep, I did it, and honestly, I don't regret it. What I found? As soon as she stepped outside, she called that same friend who'd texted me earlier. On top of that, I saw a call that lasted over an hour to a number I didn't recognize on her way to the venue. When she came back in, I started asking her questions, like which rental place they went to, and a bunch of other stuff. She had quick answers that seemed solid, so I started thinking, okay, maybe I'm just overthinking this. Maybe I need to chill and sleep on it. But this morning I couldn't let it go. I asked her to show me the text her friend sent, asking her to pick her up, and I told her I'd apologize for questioning her last night. She straight up refused. Then I asked, "When I saw you on the phone yesterday while driving to the venue, who were you talking to?" She said, "Oh, that was the friend I picked up later." And that's when I knew she was lying. I told her I had checked her phone records and that her story didn't match up. That's when she flipped and changed it to, "Oh, I actually needed to meet up with a coworker to discuss a patient." I asked, "Who's this coworker and why couldn't you just talk about it over the phone?" She then said, "I needed to show him the techniques in person." At this point, I'm done. So she finally drops the guy's name, Michael. At this point, I'm sketched out beyond belief. We've always been honest with each other, and now she's acting shady. I asked to see the texts between her and Michael, and she flat out refused. I was like, why not? If there's nothing to hide, why can't I see them? Are you having an affair? Do you not want to be with me anymore? She just stood there for a second, and then out of nowhere, she starts listing off everything that's wrong with me. Apparently, I work too much, I don't spend enough time with her, and I don't listen. I was shocked. None of this had ever come up before, and now it's all just spilling out? It felt like she was trying to justify something. At that point, I already knew something was going on. I asked to see the texts again, and it took me half an hour to convince her to show them to me. When she finally caved, the messages were absolutely insane. They were super sexual, talked about me a lot, and straight up said she wanted to be with him. She even admitted they were basically in love. Turns out she started this job about a month and a half ago, and Michael is her coworker. He's also 15-20 years older than her, divorced, and has multiple kids. Meanwhile, I've been financially supporting her for months while she got back on her feet. I was even working extra so she wouldn't have to pick up a second job. And this is how she repays me? We share a house together, along with our 3 dogs and her horse. Honestly, I'm still in shock. I never saw this coming, and we were supposed to get married in 4 months. Sorry for the long story, I'm just completely beside myself right now. Any advice would mean the world. Update 1. I finally got a chance to sit down with her tonight to talk about everything. She came in hot, immediately trying to shift the blame onto me for what she did. She tried to justify the cheating and lying by saying it was all because of me, Apparently, I don't communicate well or listen enough. She even said she wouldn't have started talking to this guy if I'd been a better listener. She went on about how I spend too much time working in the office and don't dedicate enough time to her. I tried to explain that the reason I've been putting in those extra hours was to support her and our family financially while she's been struggling. I was doing it so she wouldn't have to take on a part-time job. Her response? She said she'd have rather gotten a part-time job than have me work so much. That just doesn't make any sense to me. She told me she thought we could move past this because it was short-lived. She claimed it only lasted a week, and they only made out once. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. When I brought up the texts where she was trashing me and being super flirty and sexual with him, she completely deflected. I couldn't get anywhere with her on that. I told her straight up, I'm not the reason this happened, you are. You crossed a line and should have communicated with me or at least thought about the consequences before doing this. But now? I can't trust you again. This is all on you. She kept trying to justify it, but I shut that down. By the end of it, things calmed down a bit and we started talking about the practical stuff, like what to do with the house and the dogs. We agreed on two options. Either I buy her out and stay in the house, or we sell it and both get new places. As for the dogs, one of us will take one and the other two will stay together with the other person. That's where we left things for tonight. I'll keep you all updated as this plays out, but I'm curious, what would you guys do about the house? Financially, I can afford to keep the house on my own, but it's a lot, nearly 3,000 square feet on 5 acres. The only reason we bought a property this size was for her horse, which she'll be taking when she moves out. She's planning to board it at a barn. Update 2. Day 3. Tonight we had a long 3-hour conversation about our relationship and everything that led up to what happened. She started by listing all the things I did wrong: lack of communication, spending too much time working, and always being on my phone. Honestly, I can't disagree with any of that. The thing is, my mindset behind working so much was to support our family. I run an e-commerce business on the side and I'm basically a one-man show when it comes to customer service. Deals happen 24/7 and I'm always on the clock. I could have definitely done a better job setting my phone aside and handling things the next day instead of being glued to it all the time. As for the communication, I'll admit that was an issue on both sides. A big example? I had no idea she was unhappy about any of this. She never communicated it to me, so how was I supposed to know? She told me she didn't bring any of this up before because she thought I'd get upset if she did, but the truth is, she never even gave me the chance to work on it. Look, I'm not a perfect person by any stretch, and I know there have been times when things I say or do come across to her as rude, even if that wasn't my intention. For example, a week or two ago, I was trying to help her get a budget together to address some financial issues she'd been having. To give some context, I work in the financial industry, so this is something I do for clients all the time. During the conversation, she mentioned owing me maybe $100 and said she'd pay me back with her next paycheck. I replied with something like, I think it's a little more than that. Let's go through the transfers I've made to our joint account. When we went through everything, it turned out she actually owed me over $500. My intention wasn't to make her feel bad. It was to help her see how much I've been contributing and get a better picture of things. But she took it as me trying to humiliate her. I think maybe my timing was off, but I really was just trying to help. She told me, I've been too focused on money lately, but honestly, I was just trying to make sure we were going to be okay. With the wedding expenses piling up, my budgeting mindset had kicked into overdrive. I was doing everything I could to make sure we'd have enough. The fact that she keeps trying to justify what she did by pointing to my flaws as the reason for it really bothers me. She keeps saying she's shocked that I'd throw away 7 years of our relationship like this, and I have to keep reminding her I'm not the one who threw it away, she did, with her actions. She also told me I shouldn't have told so many people about what happened so quickly, and that we could have resolved it privately between us. Then she went back to saying she wouldn't have needed to talk to someone else if I had been a better listener and communicator. I've finally figured out the full extent of the affair, and based on the texts I read, I actually believe her when she says it was short-lived. It seems like they started talking 1 or 2 weeks before I saw the texts that set everything off. I don't know if they had met up outside of work before this, but this time he asked her to go to the park to play basketball and talk. She went, and they ended up making out. I truly believe it didn't go further than that, at least not yet, but I'm pretty sure it would have if things continued. She claims he's not her boyfriend, but honestly, it's hard to believe anything at this point. Tonight, she took off, and I have no idea where she is. I'm assuming she's either with him or one of her friends. The living situation is super awkward right now, but I'm hoping we can figure this out and resolve things soon. I do think she wants me to get back with her and try to fix things, but honestly, I'm not sure I can. The root of the problem seems to be a lack of communication that built up over time. We got into a routine, living this simple, boring life, and the issue was never brought up or addressed. Instead of talking to me about it, she acted out, lied to my face, and talked trash about me behind my back. She's shown that she can be really sneaky, and the truth is, I just don't think I'll ever be able to fully trust her again. Honestly, moving on would probably be the easiest thing to do, but I don't think I'd ever be truly happy if I didn't try to understand the root cause of what happened. Gaining that perspective has helped me feel a little better, if nothing else. It's also given me a chance to reflect on my own flaws, like my communication issues, and figure out how to address them moving forward. I started hitting the gym today and plan to stick to a routine. I'm also going to pick up where I left off studying for my CFP designation. I decided to take this week off work to focus on my mental health, which has been much needed. This morning I called the wedding venue and officially canceled our date. We were able to get some of the money back, but we lost a chunk, unless another couple books the date, which seems pretty unlikely. I also spoke with her parents again to keep them in the loop. They live far away and I know they're probably worried sick. I reassured them that everything is calm and fine on my end, and there's no need for them to stress about their daughter. On a more practical note, I've been looking into housing options. With today's interest rates, there's no way I'll find a house comparable to this one for the same mortgage payment. Honestly, I can barely find an apartment for less. At this point, my best option seems to be buying out her share of the house and having her find an apartment. She seems agreeable for now. We're planning to have an appraiser come out to assess the value of the house and figure out what half the equity would be. Once we know that, I'll see if it's something I can actually afford. I have a couple of questions for you all. Does any of this change how you see the situation? Am I handling this the right way? And if not, what should I be doing differently? Update 3. It's been almost a month since everything went down and I owe you all an update. Let me just say, it's been a whirlwind of emotions, a lot of busyness, and plenty of reflection. I won't sugarcoat it, the first few days after this happened, I was a total wreck. I'm talking pathetic level groveling, trying to get back with her despite everything. It's honestly embarrassing to admit, but it's part of the process, I guess. While I was in that vulnerable state, I tried everything I could think of to fix things and make them better. But no matter what I did, nothing worked. At one point, I was actually told she needed to make a decision, me or him, and she chose him. That was my wake-up call. I realized I'd completely let my self-worth go down the drain, and it was time to step back and focus on myself for a change. After 7 years of putting someone else's needs above my own, it hasn't been easy to shift gears, but that's exactly what I've been doing. The first thing I did was move our joint savings into my personal checking account. I calculated what she was owed, transferred half the balance back to the joint account, and left it there for her to take. Since then, I've been hitting the gym every single day. Not only is it helping me feel better physically, but it's also clearing my head and giving me a sense of control. I even went suit shopping, treated myself to a massage, and spent time with friends and family. Things I hadn't done in years. Looking back, this relationship was isolating. I didn't see it at the time, but it really cut me off from the people who cared about me most. That should have been a massive red flag. On top of that, I never did anything for myself. Buying clothes, for example, wasn't even on my radar because I was so focused on providing for her, the animals, and everything else. Now I'm finally starting to put myself first, and it feels good. For the first time in my life, I've started seeing a therapist weekly, and honestly, it's been a game changer. It's helped me process everything and feel more confident in my decisions. I'm pretty sure I'll keep going even after this mess is resolved. It's been that helpful for my personal growth. Now, on to the bigger stuff. I'm still living in the house with my ex. She's sleeping in the guest room, and the only communication between us is basically, "Did you feed the dogs?" I've come to the conclusion that she's just a terrible person. No matter what I say, in her mind, this is all my fault. It's wild to accuse someone of being a bad communicator while refusing to communicate your own feelings, and then use that as an excuse to cheat. It's pure hypocrisy, but I guess it's an easy way out in her delusional mind. I've stopped trying to reason with her. It's pointless. She's completely unreasonable, so I'm done wasting my energy there. Instead, I've been focusing on moving forward. I've already started the process of listing the house for sale. I contacted a real estate agent, they came by to check things out, and I'm happy with the proposed sale price. She then asked me to contact 2 other real estate agents to get their opinions. One of them was a recommendation from her friend. So, of course, I ended up making all the calls, setting up all the appointments, and meeting with everyone. That's just how our relationship always worked. I did all the legwork. Even though it's not fair, I've been willing to do it because I just want to get out of this situation as fast as possible. After meeting with all 3 agents, we decided to go with the first one. Photos of the house were taken on Sunday, and it was officially listed that night. There's already been a ton of interest, and we've scheduled an open house for next Saturday. Things are moving along quickly. As for the horse, she's planning to board it at a barn somewhere, still TBD. We also had a conversation about the dogs. I offered to take one or none, whatever worked best. She said she wanted to keep all 3 so they could stay together, and honestly, I didn't fight her on it. They're a happy little pack, and I don't want to break them up. Plus, if I'm being selfish, it gives me a chance to truly start fresh without any attachments. On an unexpected note, I met someone about a week ago, and we've been spending a lot of time together. I'm not expecting anything serious or rushing into anything, but I'm enjoying her company, and it's been a nice change of pace. She's been through a similar situation before, and honestly, talking to her has been a game changer. She's kind, thoughtful, and so independent, it's really opened my eyes. It's made me realize just how self-centered, dependent, and manipulative my ex was. Looking back, I should have listened to the warnings from my friends and family a long time ago. I think I just got stuck in the comfort of routine. Life wasn't exciting, but it was easy. Nice house, plenty of land, great animals. I didn't want to rock the boat, so I just went with it. I didn't stop to think if I was really happy. It's crazy how you don't see these things clearly until you take a step back and really reflect. Some people might say these years were wasted, but I don't see it that way. I'm treating it as a learning experience. Next time, I won't ignore the red flags or settle for less than I deserve. I've made a promise to myself not to fall into the trap of simplicity again. I'll make sure to keep strong connections with my friends and family, no matter what. Before I wrap this up, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone who commented on my original post. I turned to Reddit because I was lost and had no idea what to do, and the kindness of strangers blew me away. You all took the time to help someone you didn't even know, and that means the world to me. I read every single comment, and each one played a part in helping me get to where I am now. I'm genuinely excited for this next chapter, wherever it takes me. So thank you all, truly. Update 4. Hey everyone, it's been a while since I last posted. And it's wild to think all of this went down over 4 months ago. With time, everything has gotten so much better. If someone out there is going through something similar and happens to read this, I hope it helps them see that time really does heal. I stayed in the house with my ex until mid-May. Living in the house with her and the dogs after everything went down was brutal. It felt like my entire life as I knew it had come crashing down, and we were basically just 2 roommates who didn't like each other. I tried to avoid her as much as possible, but with us sharing the same space, that was easier said than done. We slept in separate bedrooms, but we left the doors open so the dogs could come and go as they pleased at night. For the first few weeks, she'd still go out at night, but that stopped after a while and didn't happen again for the rest of the time we were living there. The constant texting and phone calls, though, those didn't stop. I think she and the guy decided not to date but stay friends. But honestly, I didn't care enough to dig for details. She moved out in mid-May and took 2 of the 3 dogs with her. Saying goodbye to them was gut-wrenching, like losing family members. During my last month at the house, I did meet up with her and the dogs a couple of times at the dog park. It was bittersweet. The dogs recognized me right away and were so happy to see me, which made it both easier and harder at the same time. It was clear the dogs were doing just fine without me, which honestly made me feel a little better. Whenever I saw them, we kept the conversations short, mostly just updates on how they were adjusting. She ended up moving to a pretty rundown house in a not-so-great area, to put it nicely. There was a yard for the dogs, but it wasn't fenced in yet. Last I heard, she was working on getting that finished. Meanwhile, I was focusing hard on myself. I hit the gym every single day and I poured myself into my side hustle. I knew life was going to get expensive and I wanted to be prepared. From March to mid-June, right up until I moved out, I managed to pull off 6 figures in sales through my side hustle. I also made it a point not to splurge on anything big, which allowed me to save a solid chunk of money. Between those savings and the proceeds from selling the old house, I was able to comfortably afford a beautiful new home in a nice area. It even has a decent-sized yard for the 1 dog who stayed with me. Selling the old house was a breeze compared to buying the new one. That was a nightmare. Thankfully, the buyers of my old place let me rent it back for a month until mid-June, which gave me some breathing room. I ended up making offers on 5 different houses before finally landing one toward the end of May. Getting out of the old house was a huge relief. That place held so many memories, and honestly, it felt like they were haunting me. Especially after my ex left with the other 2 dogs, it just felt so empty. Moving was no picnic, but my friends and family really came through to help, and I'll always be grateful for that. I've been in my new house for a little over a month now, and every day it feels more like home. It's closer to my girlfriend, which is another bonus. She's been incredible, so supportive and patient through all of this. She's been really mindful of my need for space and has handled my emotional ups and downs better than I could have ever asked for. Being with her is like a breath of fresh air. She communicates so well, and it's been rubbing off on me. I've never been in a relationship where I've felt this level of emotional growth. My emotional intelligence has come a long way, and I'm becoming a better communicator because of her. I feel so lucky to have her in my life. Life is good. Honestly, while this was one of the hardest things I've ever been through, I feel blessed that it happened. I was about to marry someone who was completely self-centered and ungrateful, and I didn't even realize how miserable I'd become. I was so stuck in my daily routine, and I didn't want to disrupt my animals' lives or lose my house, so I just kept putting up with it. Now I'm focusing on myself, figuring out what I truly want and need, and I'm committed to giving my dog the best life possible. I still think about my ex sometimes. There are flashbacks, both good and bad. But my therapist has been a huge help. She's helped me come to terms with the fact that I'll probably never get the apology I feel I deserve. My ex is just too proud to admit she was wrong, and I've accepted that. Communication with her is minimal, and I don't plan on seeing her or the other 2 dogs again. As much as that stings, I know it's what's best for everyone. If I missed anything or you have questions, feel free to comment and I'll be happy to answer. But for me, this chapter is closed, and I won't be posting about it again. Thank you all for following along and for the incredible support throughout this whole journey.